Well, and Theresa May has been accused of bribing the DUP with a £1 billion deal, despite her previous assertion that there was no magic money tree. The government faces a backlash from Wales and Scotland, with Ms Sturgeon calling the agreement the worst kind of pork barrel politics, angry that the huge payout to Northern Ireland wouldn't mean additional funding for Scotland. There's also criticism over the deal's potential to jeopardise the Northern Ireland peace process. But the Defence Secretary Michael Fallon has defended the deal, saying the money is not a payoff for the DUP.
Well, this is not money for the DUP. This is money for Northern Ireland. All the parties in Northern Ireland will benefit. It's investment in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland has always been a very special situation because clearly with 30 years of troubles there, they began to lag seriously behind the rest of the United Kingdom. And we've all got an interest in making sure that people in Northern Ireland have the same entitlement to a prosperous and safe future as people who live in England.
That's what Michael Fallon thinks. Let's discuss this. In Westminster, Caroline Farrow, a blogger at The Conservative Woman, and Matthew Doyle, former special advisor to Tony Blair and David Blunkett. A very good afternoon to both of you. Caroline, £1 billion over 2 years, a price worth paying?
Well, I think it's probably small change, isn't it, down the back of the sofa compared to the £500 billion that John McDonnell and the Labour Party were promising in their manifesto. I don't really know why everybody's so shocked about this. It's the sort of politicians in thirst for power special. You know, this is exactly the sort of thing that the Labour Party would have done. They would have given huge sums to the SNP if they'd have had just a few more seats in the election a couple of weeks ago. And of course, we know that the Labour Party were promising to do the same, to give the DUP vast amounts of money in deals in 2010 and in 2015. So, yeah, while it's disappointing, I think that Theresa May is kind of reneging on her spending promise, you know, at the same time, what she's doing is nothing new, and we shouldn't really be that surprised.
Matthew, it's a rough trade, politics, and when a deal needs doing, sometimes some fairly unconscionable deals need to be made, and as Caroline makes the point, 2010, it was as true for Labour as it is now.
Yeah, it's noticeable that Caroline couldn't actually say anything about the deal other than just sort of spent the whole of the last answer talking about the Labour Party. I mean, I think what's telling about this is looking at the circumstances in which it came about. This was an announcement, let's not forget, made in panic within 24 hours of the general election results, when Theresa May was seriously worried about her position. And, you know, fair play to the DUP. They turned around and said, "Oh, you want a deal, do you? No problem at all. That will be £1 billion, please."
The Tories have got a duty, though, haven't they? They've got a duty to form a government.
But I don't believe that they actually needed to do this deal to do that. If you look at the issues that they've spent £1 billion to get the DUP's support on, in reality, they were always going to have support on those issues. There was no way in which the DUP was going to bring down a Conservative government when it would risk Jeremy Corbyn winning a general election. So to that extent, this was a deal made in panic after the general election that didn't need to be done, that has cost all of us £1 billion. And let's not go for some sort of ridiculous idea that suddenly this is a magnanimous gesture to boost investment in Northern Ireland. If austerity is ending in Northern Ireland, why not in the rest of the United Kingdom?
Caroline, it feels iniquitous to some people, not least because Northern Ireland per capita already enjoys the munificence of the state.
Well, yes, it does. But, you know, as several commentators have pointed out, Northern Ireland is one of the poorest areas in the United Kingdom, or it's certainly, you know, a very poor province. And, you know, the money is not going to the DUP themselves, you know, and we're not talking about the streets of Belfast being paved with gold here. This is going on basic infrastructure, it's going on broadband, it's going on the health service, it's going on a whole number of projects. And also, it could be a good thing, because what really needs to happen in Northern Ireland is the peace process at Stormont needs to be restarted. And until that happens, actually, the government is going to hold on to this money and, you know, allocate it. So it's a really good incentive to get the DUP and to get Sinn Féin back, you know, in that power sharing agreement, back into process and back working again. So, you know, it really isn't, you know, the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, particularly not if you're a citizen of Northern Ireland.
Matthew, do you buy that argument that somehow there's some exceptionalism you can attach to Northern Ireland because of the Troubles?
I welcome extra money going to Northern Ireland, but I think there's an equally strong case to say that there needs to be greater investment in infrastructure in other regions of the United Kingdom. What's going to happen if some of the road and rail projects in the north, for example, don't get to go ahead as a result of this money that's now been found for Northern Ireland? And it's really disingenuous to suggest that somehow this deal aids the Northern Ireland peace process. It does the absolute reverse. This ends what has been a bipartisan position since the 1990s and John Major's role in the Northern Ireland peace process in terms of saying that the UK government isn't going to take sides in this. The fact of the matter is that for parties in Northern Ireland, they now know that there is a deal that's been done between the DUP and the Conservative government that means that the whole dynamic is very difficult for the other parties to ensure that there is fair play.
Caroline Farrow, how can the British government possibly be seen now as an honest broker, given that it's got into bed with the DUP?
Well, I think you have to remember that this is the Conservative Party we're talking about, and the Conservative Party, traditionally 30, 40 years hence, have always been actually a unionist party and have always sort of been allied with the DUP on a number of issues. And actually, the DUP have been perfectly capable of formulating very sensible policies for the last 20, 30, 40 years. This idea of them as being some sort of mad extremists is just a kind of a recent invention that's been thought up because people are so angry that Theresa May won. She may not have won as convincingly as she wanted to, but she still got 55 seats more than Jeremy Corbyn. So I can't see it actually destabilising the peace process because she is not taking a unionist side. And remember, Sinn Féin themselves do have seats in Parliament. They just choose not to take them up. And that's their decision.
Matthew, there was a little
Caroline,
light head shaking from you then. Go on.
Yeah, I don't believe that Caroline says that the DUP position is acceptable on social issues. I don't believe that the DUP position on gay rights or women's rights is something that is a mainstream Conservative position, let alone a mainstream position within British politics as a whole.
There's no indication that's going to influence government legislation in those areas, is there?
But the point is, how do we know? The fact of the matter is that we've now got a situation where even just from a, if it were, positioning point of view, I think this is a really dumb move from the Conservatives, where they have now aligned themselves with the DUP that is outside of the mainstream on social issues. It's totally wrong to say that this is a party that the Conservatives used to partner with. That was the Ulster Unionists, not the DUP, that the Conservatives used to work with. And I think all ways round, this is a bad deal. It's a bad deal for the Conservatives politically. It's a bad deal for Britain in terms of investment in infrastructure across the rest of the country, and it's a bad deal for the politics of Northern Ireland.
Got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Matthew Doyle, Caroline Farrow, thanks both very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.